April 1967, when I was stationed with the 128th Assault Helicopter Company out of Fuloy. We had an assignment that day to support the ARVN Special Forces and Rangers, and our Hueys, our slicks, were out inserting them into small LZs around Kuchi area, just across the Saigon River. And part of the job was to try to engage the enemy and find out where they were at. And when they found the enemy, then overwhelmed them by bringing in more troops. So our gunships were out there protecting these 9 slick helicopters. And I was sitting at the base camp in Fuloy in what they call command and control ship, CNC. And our job was to handle all the radios, the communications, everything was going on. And we had the commanders of the ARVN Rangers and South Vietnamese troops in our helicopter itself. They were right in the back with me. And our job was, once the thing got engaged, then we would go to the area of operation and we'd fly overhead and give orders and scout things out and direct the battle. So all of a sudden we're starting to listen to all the helicopter radio chatter. And it seemed like there was pretty heavy engagement going on. They encountered a force much bigger than they anticipated. In fact, they were estimating upwards. They had no idea how much. Upwards, perhaps 500, mixture of Viet Cong and North Vietnamese regulars. Was unsure what they were dealing with. But they opened up a hornet's nest. And 9 of the helicopters, all 9 of them in fact, had bullet holes in them and had some damage. And the gunships were escorting them back to Fuloy. That's when we got the call to go out and figure out what was going on out there and get in the air. So we flew out, passing all our incoming aircraft, and we found ourselves totally alone above the battle. And no gunships, nobody to protect us at all. And we also had orders that since there were friendly troops on the ground engaged in combat with the enemy, we couldn't fire our machine guns because we weren't sure exactly where the lines were at and who to hit and who was who, and from the air you couldn't tell. So eventually the ground commanders go, hey, we got to get down there, we got to take control of this thing, drop us down. So it was decided that we were going to drop out of the sky, where we were at some 3,000 feet or something up, and we dropped on down, and the closer we got, the slower we went, and the more focused the enemy became. And all of a sudden, it was like somebody turned on a shower of red and white sparks going through the air, tracers coming from everybody. So wherever how many troops were on the ground, whether it was 300 or 500, everybody was shooting at us. All of a sudden, there was bullets going right through one side of the helicopter and out the other. They were hitting. I could hear you could kind of hear the ping, ping, ping. But with all the noise in a helicopter, it's hard to say what you hear, but you could feel it. You could feel the little vibration of when it hits the sheet metal. And so we had this ping, 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 ping. There was rounds coming and going and everything else. And I'm getting orders on my radio, don't shoot, don't fire, there's friendlies on the ground. So we finally landed a hail of bullets and we're on the ground just for a brief few seconds. Commanders jump off, they evacuate. I turn around and check the tail rotor to see if there's any enemies behind us, any obstacles. And as I got my head turned, just as I start to turn back towards the front, one of the commanders that got off the helicopter, an officer for the South Vietnamese Army, it turned out he was a double agent. He turns around, he put a new clip in his automatic weapon, and he had his gun right on his shoulder, and he leveled a burst right at my chest. So all of a sudden, as I'm turning around, I see this light coming at me, just right to my chest. It's a big, huge explosion on my chest protector, one I just got, which I'll explain later, but I just had this new ceramic chest protector for 3 days. Test it out. So I just had it 3 days. Anyway, so this one round hits in my heart, blows this humongous hole, and I'm getting pieces of ceramic in my face, and there's smoke, and there's fire coming out of my chest. At the same time, something severed the line of my helmet, line that plugs in for the radio, so all of a sudden it went dead silent. So I'm hit, I'm knocked back against the housing of the transmission wall, and I look down and in total silence, and there's smoke and flames in my chest. And my breath is taken out of me just by the force of the round that hit me. And for just a brief moment, I know it sounds kind of odd, but just for a brief moment, I thought, well, maybe I'm really dead. I mean, because I'm looking down at my big hole in my chest. And anyway, so we pull up. The pilot was able to get it up about 10, 15 feet. And it's not doing for, I'm looking, there's fuel pouring out, there's oil, there's hydraulic fluids, there's a little smoke coming from the engine. It's got damage all over the place. So we go about a football field length away and make an unscheduled forced landing. And we skid on the ground and we get out, and I unstrap myself. I go around to the front seat. I open up the door for the pilot, pull back the protector. He's got a big metal plate that protects him. Pull that back, get him out. Go around the other side and notice that the other pilot was sitting in the seat. Nobody was helping him out, so I got him out. And then I realized why when I looked at my gunner sitting on the other side. Now the gunner is sitting on one side of the aircraft, and I'm sitting on the other side. We are silhouettes of each other. One on the right, one on the left. One's facing out this way, one's facing out that way. We have our backs to each other. Now, we both had these new chest protectors to try out. Both of us decided to take the back plate out and put it under our seat to protect ourselves from rounds coming up through our canvas seats and protecting what we thought was a vital part of our body. And so, therefore, our backs had nothing on it, because why did we need that? We're sitting up against a solid metal transmission and there's a wall there. But somehow, on his side of the helicopter, I'm looking at him, and he's slumped over his machine gun, his M60 machine gun, and there's blood just pouring off the floor, metal floor of the helicopter, and there's blood all over his seat. And I'm looking, at the top I didn't know how many, but apparently there was like 17 exit holes of shrapnel from the rounds bouncing around or something. Somehow these rounds shrapneled out onto his side, and he had caught some in the neck, the back, the shoulder, the buttocks, and he was bleeding pretty good. And he wasn't critical, but he was bleeding pretty good. So I patched him up a little bit. I didn't have much time to do much, and then I threw him on my shoulder, and I realized that we made this landing in the field was pretty jarring, and it kind of hurt my back. So I felt like my back was injured at the time, in my neck, for that. And then from getting jerked back from the round, my neck was definitely hurting. But in spite of that, in spite of apparently I had a wound in the hand at the time, I threw him over my shoulder, and we decided to get the heck out of harm's way and to get farther back from the helicopter, because if anybody's coming, they'd come towards the helicopter. And so I put him on my shoulders, all 5'6" of me, 139 pounds, and I I sprinted about 100 plus yards with him on my back, and about killed my back. We got to the edge of the LZ where I could hide a little bit. We crouched down. One of the gunships came back, and I loaded him on the wounded gunner on board that gently, and then as I'm doing that, my commander rushed past me and jumped on the aircraft, gives a thumb up, and they go, and they're telling us, we have no room for you guys. There's too much weight. So there, me and the co-pilot, this captain, stood watching these guys fly away, leaving us in the midst of this battle. We're on the edge of it, but we're right there. And we're not exactly sure where the enemy's at. And so it's kind of a lonely feeling watching people fly away, leaving you in an LZ. And that's exactly what happened. Even though I was bloodied and I didn't weigh that much, I thought maybe we could get on there anyway. They left us. So I got mad, and I didn't want to be the hunted, so I decided to be the hunter. So I went back to helicopter. I took off my machine gun, M60, where I had loaded, made these belts of ammo, which were solid tracers, 1,000 rounds. And I put it in there, locked it down, and I put it on my hip, and I started walking towards the area that I thought the enemy would be coming from. And I figured I'm going to lay down some heavy fire in this area, so we'll let them know that we're here, and they'll stay away. So I started firing from the hip, and my captain, he stood behind me with his Army issue 45 and covered my back. And I emptied about 800, 900 rounds of ammo in this thing. And then the gun froze up. It froze up and um, couldn't fire it. In fact, the barrel melted. I stood there. It was this click, and nothing was happening. And I realized that I'd overheated the barrel. I looked down there, and the barrel was actually bent, and it was white hot. And I learned something that infantrymen know a long time ago. You only can fire little bursts, boom, boom, boom. I've been riding in a helicopter where you can fire all day long because you got a rotor cooling it, you got airspeed going 100 miles, 100 knots, whatever. And so it's always cooled. But on the ground, that theory doesn't hold up. So anyway, after melting the barrel down and realizing that I wasn't going to surrender, and neither was he, and we did a little E&E, a little escape and evasion the rest of the day, and it took hours before somebody came back for us. But finally, Huey came in and got us. I was so glad to get out of there. Later on that night, they sent out a Chinook helicopter, and it sling loaded the damaged Huey that was sitting there and took it back to the base where everybody came out and wanted to look at this and try to figure out what happened. How could somebody shoot me on one side, empty a clip of 18 rounds, one round hits me in the chest protector, and the other rounds just disappear? But somehow, 17 shrapnel holes on the other side, so 17 rounds exited the other side. How that's possible, I don't know, because there was a transmission there. There's metal. But somehow those rounds came through me, around me, bypassed me, and came out the other side. So the Army sent out investigators. They looked at it, checked it out, and they asked me what happened. I told them. They pooh-bahhed my story and my theories. And it wasn't until 3 years ago, 2013, when I got a call from Langley, Virginia, from a contractor who had my file. And apparently this agency that was hired by CIA was trying to develop an electronic method to do what happened to me, somehow make bullets move, change course, go around, or something. And when I tried to tell the guy from Langley that it can't be done electronically, and they said, well, we could engineer this, we could engineer anything. I said, okay, good luck. And so I asked about my file, and it turns out they had this big file on me from that, and they also had the file on me for an incident where I was predicting helicopters crashing and people dying. So when the Army did investigate me, I realized they weren't just making fun of me. They actually made a file, and they actually studied me and others that had incidences in Vietnam as well. So that day was finished. I was glad to get back. I got a Distinguished Flying Cross and a Purple Heart that day, and I felt grateful. Number one, that I accepted an experimental chest protector that actually worked, and that somebody was looking after me.